Action.
Hi Mathias, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing here at JandBeyond.
So I'm Mathias. I'm one of the lead developers and founders of Nuku. And Nuku is actually two things at the moment. We have Nuku Content, which is a multilingual extension. So it adds the multilingual features to our site, to the Joomla site. And besides that, we have the Nuku framework, which is a rapid application development platform. It's like a new engine that you plug into Joomla, and then you can build extensions on top of that. But you will need a lot less code, and you will have a lot more flexibility and power than you would have if you just built them on the Joomla framework.
And I know that it's a community development, isn't it? Is this a community of developers that are spread across the world, or are you in one office? How does it work?
Well, we are a team in Belgium, which is Johan and me and Tom. And we have a couple of developers spread across Europe, and we have a couple of people in Australia as well. But besides that, we are slowly building out the Nuku community, which is focused on developers at the moment, so people who start using the framework for their own custom projects or for extensions like NinjaBoard or Anaita social engine.
Mm-hmm.
And these people are people who use the framework to build something on, and we see that gradually they start contributing as well, submitting patches or submitting new features. So the framework is a real open source, community-driven project, but with us as a company that backs it.
It must be exciting seeing these tools that you're building, and then seeing other people develop their own cool things with your tools. Right?
That's very cool, and we are getting at the point where people are starting to build things that we didn't imagine ourselves before.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the beginning, people just built a blog post extension or something, and that's like a typical use case for the framework. But now we see that people start adding features that we didn't really plan for, or they start building extensions that we didn't really imagine someone would ever need. So it's very exciting to see that happen.
So tell me, which came first? Was it the framework, or was it the Nuku content for the multilingual management?
Well, we actually started
at the same time.
No, well, we actually started with Johan, my colleague, was the lead developer of Joomla 1.5, so he's the one who basically pushed towards an object-oriented framework for Joomla. And then after 2 years working for free on Joomla, we decided to do our own project. I was working on Dogman at the time. And we got together with a couple of our customers, which are the Belgian police and some people from the United Nations and some other people. And they explained to us that they needed multilingual, and that didn't exist yet for Joomla 1.5. Joomfish wasn't ported to Joomla 1.5 yet at the time. So we started listening to them, and we basically started building the features they needed, and then we started adding new partners to, and then we listened to what they needed and started adding their features. And gradually, as we were building Nuku content, we started, putting a lot of this stuff, taking it out of Nuku content, putting it into a framework, because then it's easier to reuse and it's just, good practice.
Mm-hmm.
And then at one point we decided to just take the framework and make it a separate project.
Excellent.
Action.
So tell me a little bit more about the framework. It's you've said already it's a rapid application development framework that plug into Joomla. Tell me a little bit more about what does it combine, what benefits does it bring, what kind of technologies is it putting together?
Well, so a lot of the stuff that you do when you create a Joomla extension, it's always the same things. It's an MVC, it's controlling what goes on, it's getting data from a data source, and it's presenting that data somewhere. So if you start making that more and more generic, you basically take away the need to write all that code. And then basically now if you write an extension on top of Nuku framework, all you have to do is specialize. So we have the whole default behaviors that work like you would expect. And if there's something very specific you need for your application, then you just specialize that little bit of code. And we have plenty of ways to do that. We have sort of it's not a plugin system. It's actually based on command chains.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you have an action in your controller. We automatically publish events for that action, and you can push commands into that place. You can prioritize them, and they can interrupt the process. For example, when I add a new piece of content, I automatically have an on before add action. I can put a command in there, for example, an ACL command, which checks if you actually have permission to add that item. If you don't have permission, the command interrupts the chain, and the adding of the item doesn't happen. If the ACL does allow you to do it, then it flows through to the next commands, then does the add, and then there's an on after add event. So, and for example, in that after add event, you would put a notification command, which sends an email to someone telling you that there was content added, or maybe a logging command that logs that action in a log somewhere. So basically, it's very, very modular. You separate all these things, and you just push them in where you need them, which allows you to make a lot of things more reusable. For example, we have something called table behaviors. Basically, you have your normal table that allows you to insert and update and delete data. But we also have those actions there, and you can just plug in a certain behavior. For example, if you have articles and you want to make those, you want to do version management for those revision management, you just add the versioning behavior to that table, and that versioning behavior knows exactly what to do. It does all the work for you, and it's just pluggable. So you choose which behaviors belong to which table, and you still haven't written any code, but now you have an application with the full MVC, with the versioning, with all kinds of behaviors like building aliases, adding created by and created on and modified by and modified. All these kind of things, they're just modular things that you can reuse, not just from the framework, but even from different other extensions. So if you have one extension that provides versioning and one extension that provides taxonomies, then you just say, okay, I have my own extension and I want my own extension to have taxonomies from there, versioning from there. I just combine this and it works.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty comprehensive solution for a lot of people.
We hope so.
Yeah. Tell me as well, it's an interesting name, Nooku, N-O-O-K-U.
Well,
there must be a fun story there.
Well, it's the whole Swahili thing. When Joomla forked from Mambo, when they were looking for a name, they were looking a lot at Ubuntu. Well, not just for the name, even for things like the code of conduct was just copied from Ubuntu, and a lot of the structures they set up in the beginning were mimicked from Ubuntu. So it was a pretty logical choice to also mimic the idea of taking something Swahili, and like Ubuntu means a sort of community feeling, and Joomla means altogether as a whole, so that's also a community feeling. So that's basically how the whole Joomla world is so focused on the Swahili names. You have Kunena, the form, which means speaking, and Nuku simply means content. So Nuku content, well, it's actually content, but Nuku framework is a content management framework because it makes it easy to manage all your content and present it. So that's why I think it's a fitting name. It's maybe not such a fun story, but
no, it's interesting. And if someone wants to find out more information about Nuku and what it can do to help them, where do we need to go?
There's the website, nuku.org, and we recently rebuilt the whole website to make a clear distinction between Nuku content and Nuku framework. So Nuku content is the product side. If you are a web agency and you have customers that you need multilingual for, you go to Nuku content. There's a form you need to fill in, and you'll get all the information you need. If you are a developer and you want to make your own project, you go to Nuku framework. We have a lot of resources. We have the developer portal. We have mailing lists. We have the wiki. We have the API documentation. And if you have a look there, you can get started.
Excellent. Well, I'll be checking it out. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome.